Hi, welcome to the Bible Dialogues. My name is Mike Whitney. Today the topic is Satan and his lies. A short examination about Satan seems appropriate for this era, since many people have an exaggerated concept of what he is and what he can do. The misconception of Satan then integrates with distorted eschatology concepts. In the other direction, Satan may influence eschatology. I won't claim that Satan is behind all misunderstandings, but he influences many views and propagates lies. This is just my disclaimer as I introduce the actual topic. If you like the content or want to keep a watchful eye, subscribe to my channel and click on the like button. I will present a novel concept that seems to have been overlooked. Since it is novel, there may be rash rejections of it, but there also could be errors in my perception. The important interest regards a balanced view of Satan's ability and his nature. I may note later, as well as now, of the Scripture's lack of emphasis on this creature, since Scripture focuses more on God's work of redemption in the world. Satan has greatly lied about who he is and what he is, as we can see in society and religion around us. As his basic identity, I note that he originates as one like the beasts of the field, Genesis 3:1. We should recognize him as a creature of those found in Genesis 1 and 2. However, he is different too, not quite the cold-blooded serpent, limited in lifespan, that we might expect solely found in Genesis 3:1. Instead, he has had access to God in Job 1, and he is reasonably seen as a prosecutor who leads people into evil and accuses them. His essence then is not purely physical, but exists in a fashion that is unseen. However, he is not a fallen angel, as will be addressed. He basically functions as a bottom feeder. He cleans up the debris, which is anything susceptible or inclined to evil. Consequently, he attracted the woman in the garden to eat the forbidden fruit if she would comply. He tempted Jesus to disobey God if possible. In such efforts, he functionally is there to attract and expose evil as a way to clean the earth of it. That is the same thing we see in Revelation 27-9, where the nations are deceived and try to come against the Christians. He then likely was influencing the four empires of Daniel for following evil and being arrogant. I think that the arrogance of the king of Assyria in Isaiah 10 basically describes the arrogance that we see of Satan, but my point is just about the similarity there rather than the actual message in Isaiah 10 being about Satan. One lie forms in chapter 14 shortly after Isaiah 10, and is used to enhance his influence by claiming to be Lucifer. This is a super obvious misreading, since Lucifer is a Latin word meaning morning star rather than a Hebrew name. We understand further that anyone following Lucifer is following a lie. The first reason is there's no creature named Lucifer within Scripture. Consequently, anything people believe about features attributed to Lucifer are false, since the only real creature is known as Satan. But religions are built around this false idea of Lucifer as being found in Scripture. The additional lies derived from the misapplication of Isaiah 14 include Satan being thought to have an angelic role around God. Isaiah 14 fully explains the king of Babylon in his pride and self-estimation, using exalted poetic language. Isaiah prophesies of the eventual reign of Nebuchadnezzar, whose pride is apparent in Daniel 2, where he makes a great statue to his own glory. No reason exists to extend the language literally to another creature, albeit there can be a similarity of the serpent in Genesis 3:14 as being restricted to life on his belly, with that of Isaiah 14:14-15 of the king seeing himself like the Most High, but then here cast down to the pit. The pattern can be used for various unrelated purposes. We won't go into those. Furthermore, by claiming association of himself with Isaiah 14, Satan claims to a higher status than he ever has had. He appropriates the image of scriptures to create a false, grandiose status. The true application of Isaiah 14 toward Nebuchadnezzar helps to see Isaiah's insight into the Babylonian captivity and to provide some comfort to Israel people in their exile and beyond that. In this setting, Isaiah 14 has a clear and narrow focus on preparing people of faith for the future instead of a statement about Satan without any context for that. Still, Scripture shows Satan as influencing the governments. Genesis 3:15 suggests the crushing of Satan's head as a disabling of political power. Also, Romans 16:20 speaks of the crushing of Satan, which may provide a reminder of the end of government persecution of Christians. We see this influence in the deception of the nations from the Revelation 27-9 text, and indicating this type of deception also in Revelation 23. The deception also appears in Revelation 12:9-10. That deception is the accusations made against Christians. What are we trying to solve here? I think the idea of a fall of Satan is basically uncoordinated in the views held by most people. Some see Revelation 12:9 as the fall from heaven, but Isaiah 14 would have had it happen much earlier if it applied. The fall in Revelation 12:9 would be out of sequence again with Genesis 3:1, which if Satan were an angel, Genesis 3:1 would seem to have been the fall when it says it was confined to his belly. This would be long before the Revelation events. Additionally, Revelation 16:20 shows another period after Paul writes the letter for Satan being crushed. Especially in Luke 10:18, Jesus mentions Satan falling like lightning from heaven in response to the 70 who went to share news of Jesus and the kingdom. That appears to be Jesus expressing that this subjection of demons and the loss of Satan's power was to happen in the sharing of the message by the 70, or the start of the kingdom. And that kingdom was a kingdom to overthrow the nations. One point that should be obvious is that Jesus expressed this fall as a present tense expression of something actually to happen later in the century. We should ask, is Satan an angelic being? In any sense, strict sense at least, the answer is no. There's no mention of Satan being an angel. Even in Revelation 12:9, he is identified as the dragon, not as an angel. The verse may speak of his presence in the heavens without him being an angel, or this may reflect his influence on the earth, again without angelic status. It is interesting in Daniel that neither Gabriel nor Michael appears to confront Satan as an angel, as would make sense if that were so. It seems the main sense is not an actual presence in heaven, but rather it is a reach of influence of Satan over the nations being represented within the Scriptures. His so-called angels then are those nations and people who fall under the deceit that leads to their acting against the Christians. Whatever the exact details are, the focus is on the power of Satan over the nations and his confrontation of the Christian. We can add that Satan, as the accuser, brought fear of death to the people. This following text describes Christ's undoing Satan's power of fear, as shared in Hebrews 2:14-15. Inasmuch then as the children have partaken of the flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is, the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. There may be more ways that Satan has influenced the world and nations, but Scripture has been focused on Christ, not Satan. People may even find more passages to consider, but this should be a good overview of what Satan was doing and what he can do in bringing forth an attempt against Christians, as in Revelation 20:7-9. I hope this will help people have a better understanding, a better balance, rather than thinking Satan functions as an independent force equal in power to God. This concludes another episode of the Bible Dialogues. Thanks for watching.